Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am standing on this order to bring before the Senate the very ugly incident that greeted me on Friday, the 28th of April 2018 at the Benin airport when I arrived in Benin. Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, for the very first time in my life, I have not been so embarrassed, particularly when this one is stemming from the fact that my own constitutional role as an elected senator from Edo South Senatorial District in the Senate, I was subjected to molestation and assault by hoodlums that were recruited in my state to waylay me and perpetrate this evil act. Mr. President, you will recall that on Thursday, the 27th of July 2018, on the floor of this Senate, after you read the letter that was transmitted to the Senate by Mr. President, I stood up to make my contribution based on the fact that I am the chairman Senate Committee on Public Accounts. As chairman Senate Committee on Public Accounts, the committee deals with expenditure. And the letter that was transmitted to the Senate by Mr. President has to do with an expenditure that was already incurred. Mr. President, I precautiously looked at the implications of the message that was sent to this Senate. And I referred this Senate to all the constitutional provisions concerning the letter that was transmitted to this Senate, Mr. President. On this floor, most responsibly, I mention it without any fear of contradiction that what the President had in mind was a noble idea, because the Tucano aircraft for which the money was expended was necessary at this time to meet with our security challenges in this country. I went further to say that the procedure for the payment was wrong because there was no appropriation that was done by the National Assembly. And I went further, Mr. President, to say that this was in violation of Section 80, subsections 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Constitution. And I said that the seventh schedule of the Constitution equally has put a burden on us as elected senators to ensure that our oath that we have subscribed to, the oath of allegiance and the oath of membership of the Senate of the National Assembly, prescribe that we must do the needful to defend the provisions of this Constitution. Therefore, I said, Mr. President, that a good intention, a noble intention that was attended by a wrong procedure, that we needed to look at the provision of the Constitution as a way of resolving the issue. Mr. President, going through the 1999 Constitution as amended, the office of the President as it is over his functions, and any breach or infraction on the part of the President in the discharge of his duty is only in Section 143. I stood up on the floor and I said that we should invoke Section 143. Mr. President, Section 143 has 11 subsections. Section 143 of the Constitution is not a one-line item that prescribes impeachment for Mr. President. There are processes, there are procedures that we followed, including investigation and the rest. But the misconception that attended it was that I had called for the impeachment of Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm not saying what is not true or denying what I said. But on this floor, Mr. President, you recall, my distinguished colleagues, what I said was that we should invoke Section 143. Section 143 has prescribed different things to be said. I'm not ignorant of the provisions of this section of the Constitution. That signatures and all of that will have to be done. Investigations will have to be conducted along the way. But for somebody to work on it and mobilize thugs in my state, to lay in wait for me, to humiliate me, to do untoward things to me was most unacceptable. I was molested. In fact, a thug removed my cap. You could have seen it on YouTube or social media. I threw it away in the presence of my governor, in whose company I have worked to that point, and the State Commissioner of Police. Mr. President, I want to say that when this thing happened to me, I decided to go to the point of law. Because it happened in the presence of my state governor and the State Commissioner of Police. Mr. President, I want to say that anything that is said on this floor, it is a matter of privilege and I have immunity. More so, what I said is not a heinous pronouncement. What I said on this floor, I'm even protected by the Legislative Practice Act. I'm protected. But what I said here that was misconstrued, that led to people having to recruit thugs to confront me and molest me and humiliate me. They assaulted me at the Benin airport. So I'm bringing it to the fore because if nothing is done about this, Mr. President, this issue is going to go unchecked. I'm aware some of our colleagues too have said certain things in this regard. Whatever the contribution one has made here is not based on the fact that I'm a PDP senator. I was discharging my duty as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the chairman of the Senate Committee on Public Accounts. So there is nothing that was overtly partisan about my contribution. And Mr. President, the question I'll put it forth. If Mr. President himself was Senator Muhammadu Buhari and a chairman Senate Committee on Public Accounts, what I did, would you have done it differently? Would you have done it differently? So for persons to decide that as a senator, a serving senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, molestation and assault with what will greet me for performing my constitutional duty, I think is most unacceptable. I'm bringing it to these distinguished chambers that we have to look at this thing dispassionately. Those of them that are involved in this, they have to be fished out. They must be punished to serve as a deterrent to others. And of course, I want this issue to get to court, so that whatever it is that we meted out as punishment will serve as deterrent. Mr. President, I'm pleading that those who are involved must be fished out and they must be dealt with. And then, of course, Mr. President, even based on this, quite ignorant, the State House of Assembly that has no power to legislate for this chamber went ahead to say that what was done, what I did, asking for the opinion of the president, I should go and apologize. That is very baseless. And that within 72 hours, I don't apologize, they are going to issue a recall. I want to bring it to this house. That's our assembly has acted on ignorance. Because the basis of it does not even exist. And of course, this has to take a difference to that resolution. The State Assembly cannot legislate for the Senate. The National Assembly can legislate for the states. I want to say, Mr. President, please, my prayers, those that are involved must be fished out by security agencies in the state and must be brought to book. And that this action must be condemned in the strictest terms, Mr. President, so that all of them that are concerned, if they are brought to justice, and I think we would have begun to be on the path of glory in this country. Because thuggery should not be mentioned amongst us. This country is too decent for certain things. And of course, the National Assembly, nobody should be able to take off for granted. We are here to serve the people. We have been duly elected. We know that all the segments of our people cannot be happy with what we are doing. But the greater majority of the people, when they are happy, is enough for us. But for those who take a difference to what we perform here constitutionally, they too must be brought to book and told that they have no option in this matter. For them to keep serving selfish interest is unacceptable, Mr. President. So I have come to this distinguished Senate to look at this matter more dispassionately and condemn this action, and all those who are involved will be brought to book. Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues.
We must condemn any act of molestation, harassment, attack based on our views in this floor of the legislative houses. The Legislative House Powers and Privileges Act, which is an act that exists, signed by the President and is under Section 3, we have immunity from our views and our proceedings here. So I think that I'll be speaking, I'm sure, on behalf of all of us to condemn that such an act. It's unfortunate that we have such an act where people are molested, harassed by expressing their views here. And it's unfortunate. And I think also, I'm happy that the chairman, police, is here, that can definitely carry out the exercise to engage with the CP police of Edo to see that those who attacked our colleague based on the immunity he has should be brought to books. This is not about the subject. It could be any subject matter. And people should be able to express their views here and enjoy that immunity. And so, Chairman, Senate Control Police, please do that and come back and report back to us on the progress that is made on this area. Thank you. Leader of the